Hello, everybody, and welcome to the January 11th, 2022 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG Windows Kubernetes SIG Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. Let's get started. Biggest announcement is the 124 release schedule has been finalized. The enhancements freeze date was pushed back a week from what I mentioned last week, after a number of leads, including myself, said it's a longer release. Let's push enhancement freeze back by a week, and the release team didn't, and the enhancements team did not have any issues with that. So now enhancements freeze is February 3rd of this year. So that just gives everyone a little bit more time to get any enhanced, like the KEPs reviewed and merged with that. Rest of the release schedule is linked here. Take a look if you have any questions. The next, actually, I think this is probably, we'll just make that an agenda item. Does anybody else have any announcements to make? If not, we can get into the schedule. Okay. Oh, James, you're adding something?
No, I was just adding the agenda.
Oh,
so we knew started.
Different thing. Yeah. First thing, actually, James, do you want to talk about this, or should I talk about this? The GitHub container registry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So in the past, there's been kind of SIG Windows maintains this Docker Hub group, SIG Windows tools, and things like the GMSA webhook and a couple of the images used for the kubeadm implementations were all hosted here. And recently, or maybe not even recently, but we recently noticed that the Kubernetes SIGs org has enabled the packages for that org, and the GitHub container registry or repository functionality has been kind of stable for a while now. So we, James took a look and decided that like this is probably ready to use. So I think in the future, we're planning on updating all the tools from SIG Windows tools to push their images and any other repositories that we have to push their images to the Kubernetes SIGs packages repository. If anybody has any like concerns or issues about that, please let us know. This has a pretty nice UI. You can show it here. And James pushed one new image for an eventful logger container image that he built here to kind of test this out. This is coming from the SIG Windows tools repository as highlighted here. You can click into this and manage the versions and see all of the tags and everything. And so for like a multi-arch image, you can see the different images in here and everything with the OS versions and the SHAs of all of the images. And this is open to the public. So this is like totally public, the container images. Management is tied to the permissions on the repository that pushed the images. So that's also a pretty nice user experience. We don't need to manage separate groups or like Docker Hub accounts and all of that. So this is kind of an FYI that this is something that we're going to be pursuing kind of as we have time moving this out here. And if you weren't already aware of the GitHub container registry and you were looking for an alternative to Docker Hub, please take a look. It looks pretty slick.
Yeah, so I'll just add a couple of things to that. So the GMSA image, we're actually going to be moving into the k8s.io container registry because it's an official image that we're going to be supporting. So
Jamie's been helping out with that.
Yeah.
I was going to mention, yeah.
Yep. So Jamie's been helping with that. And then this event flow logger, it's a project that I put together. I needed to get the logs from containerd. It's a host process container that listens to ETW and then forwards that to console out. And it's completely configurable, so you can listen to any type of ETW event, and then it will forward it to standard out. And it could also forward it on to other outputs. So you can, I think you can put it to some of the different Azure endpoints, some Google endpoints, depending on where you want to push that data for your own logging purposes. But Containerd only logs ETW events, and so by default. And so this is a quick way to be able to configure and turn those on and off. So check it out if you're looking at logging Containerd.
Yeah, and here's an example of kind of the config file for that. You can name the ETW session. Well, say if it's an ETW session, name the ETW session, list the ETW providers that you want, and the output type. So this might be a great way for people to get logs. Also, so this is set up to run as a host process container, but I think it's mentioned in the README that this is something that's very easy to run as a standalone binary as well, if you don't want to run it as a host process container. So thank you for putting that together, James. I think it'll be helpful. Okay, next agenda item is back in December, we had kind of talked about, and I think there was a lot of agreement for figuring out a time to have a shared space to do some of the docs updates. I asked a few people, and it seems like that I'm going to propose that we, for a couple of weeks, have a bi-weekly meeting to kind of as a touch point for some of the docs updates that we want to do as SIG Windows. And I wanted to propose that we use alternating Thursdays for the Thursdays at 9:30 a.m. PST, so the same time as this meeting, but the weeks that we don't do the backlog grooming or refinement, to kind of use a touch point, and then we can sync up, see what kind of updates we would like to do, maybe assign some owners to that, and then follow up in the following 2 weeks. Does that I guess, does anybody have any issues with that? Does that time not work for people who would want to be part of that effort, or anything like that? I'll also post in Slack sometime today to get some more feedback on that. But if not, I'll add a calendar invite to our SIG Windows calendar, and so people can join as necessary. I see some thumbs up and nobody disagreeing, but yeah, reach out if you have any issues with that time. I see Jamie joined. I wanted to, Jamie, we had just talked about one thing that we're doing kind of in parallel with the efforts that you're doing to publish the GMSA container image to the official, cates.gcr.io. We are investigating, looking at pushing container images that are built out of SIG Windows tools and some of the other ones that we wouldn't really consider as in an official capacity to the GitHub credential or GitHub container registry for the Kubernetes SIGs org.
Okay.
So there's a little link to that, and James started pushing an image from the SIG Windows tools repository to that too, and can catch you up if you have any questions about that.
Okay.
But I think Jamie, do you have the next agenda item?
Yeah, I think there's like 100 threads going on about CSI proxy and stuff like that, and different channels and stuff. I figured we should all just talk about it. So what's the latest? I haven't really tested it on vSphere yet, to be honest. So I'm just curious to learn more about where y'all are at, Jamie, Luther.
Yeah, so we have CSI proxy going to start shipping with Wins. So Wins right now, you can add a config file, restart Wins, and it gets the version specified in the config file of CSI proxy, and then starts it for you. So the idea is we can bootstrap CSI proxy with Wins, since RKE Rancher, RKE2, depends on Wins to do a lot of functionality. So we started booting CSI proxy, and as part of that, I have to provide QA with a workflow to test, which then I'm having to read and see where all the implementations are. And then Luther kindly went to the CSI SIG meeting yesterday for CSI proxy. And it looks like the SMB, the vSphere, the Azure ones, and the GCP ones are the most mature. Implementation wise, with SMB kind of being one of the better ones, like alpha is vSphere's alpha, but we're going to start testing that too, so we can give some feedback there for anybody that's looking to use it. But yeah, I have a scenario between all the different. The SMB CSI repository, by the way, has the best, most complete YAML that I've found so far for like if you're trying to do something local. So that's a good place to start. But I'm gonna document all this stuff up, and I'll probably share it with you all, so you can kind of know if you want to set up an SMB server in your cluster and then like test out what it's like. But it's all there. It's in the vSphere chart, and it's in the SMB chart. So the official CSI SMB driver chart has the option to enable Windows support, which means you'll get pulled down all the right CSI proxy bits. And the vSphere chart's the same way. So just know that those both ship with that stuff there. I'm pretty sure the Azure one probably has a chart too that's got that enabled. But so there's some stuff floating around there that we're kind of digging into and testing, because we know customers want storage, and CSI proxy is probably one of the better choices at the point for getting it. Even though I know host process is coming, so Luther might want to share some insights.
So not really. So at least for vSphere, it's not really 100% working for you yet, but you're using CSI proxy and you're testing what drivers on the back end actually work.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident the vSphere one's supposed to work. It's just a little bit more complex to test, right? Because you got to have the right version of vSphere. And
yeah.
And then for the audience here, are the plans to integrate this into the SIG Windows dev environment so that people can also test that out locally, and also test out development of plugins in that environment?
I think it'd be a pretty easy thing to add. Like enabling CSI proxy is pretty simple. The one big issue with CSI proxy as it sits right now is there's only two official. I'm going to air quote official. There's only two people publishing binaries for it, and that's Microsoft and Google. So you can pick which one you want to choose. We're pulling the ones from Microsoft because that was the first person to respond to be like, oh, we got pre-compiled binaries that you can pull. So, but I also know that Google does compile them and have them. It would be nice to maybe get those officially like being built and published as part of the project, so it's easier just to know where to go pick them up. But I think their direction is changing a little bit with host process containers coming and stuff. But I personally don't see, if you're worried about using CSI proxy now, my personal opinion so far is I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, because there's lots of work from the CSI plugins. If they want to do host process, apparently from what Luther talked about, there might be the idea of you have to pull in the CSI proxy stuff to kind of talk to the operating system.
And pull in the package, by the way, to bring it into your plugin. Yeah. By the way, Mauricio is on if he has anything to add. I just want to make sure he has a voice here too.
Okay.
It's going to.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's new. That's what I didn't realize is how new it was. They said 1.0. I was like, okay, it's ready. And then that's like, I keep forgetting not every project's caught up to what they're doing. And so, it's like trying to get CNIs as host process containers. Like, well, they got to be making Windows CNIs, and they got to be making the images. And
yeah, I think that there's currently like the current stages, at least my understanding, is that there's the CSI proxy today, which it can be compiled and run on the node, and that needs to be run on the node, and then the different plugins can connect to. You have to, in your container images or in your pods, you have to mount in the named pipes that are exposed by that. And then there's kind of an intermediate step that I've tested, not very extensively, and that's running the CSI proxy, that binary, in a host process container instead of as a service on the host. And I do plan on making an image, container image for that, and putting it in SIG Windows tools and publishing it to that same Kubernetes SIG's GitHub container registry in the near future. and then the long-term strategy, and that will operate the same way. So that will expose named pipes on the host that the different provider, like CSI plugin providers, can mount in via volume mounts in their deployments. And then the long-term strategy is to not require CSI proxy to be running on the host, but instead use it as a binary. And then the whole thing will, the whole plugin will run as a host process container and just call into CSI proxy library, which will do all of the storage operations as possible or as needed.
Yeah, I'll post the link to how you enable it if you're using Wins. So if you got the latest version of Wins, you can just pop in some config and he'll start up CSI proxy for you. It doesn't, and download it. It doesn't really manage it, but it's a way to kind of get started in testing it out if you want to pretty easily.
So just as a note, here, Mark, you wrote SMB and vSphere are the most mature. I have to say vSphere is just alpha, so we cannot say vSphere is the most mature. So.
Okay, I was just taking notes. I can change that.
Right, so CSI proxy itself is GA, so the API is V1 already, and so for SMB, GCPD, and Azure, maybe they are all considered as GA, those drivers.
Yeah, I think that Jamie was specifically looking for ones that could be like all local. So you could set up a SMB server on a node or on vSphere in there too. You can call that out.
Yeah, that's the hard thing for like, especially if you're doing development, right? Like running as much things local is faster feedback and a little easier from my experience.
Right.
So that's kind of where I focused. I know the GCE one and the Azure ones are being used right now and seem to work really well. So
yeah, sure.
But yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Well, does anybody have any questions for anybody about CSI plugins on Windows? Not, does anybody have anything else they'd like to talk about, or we can end the meeting now and go into pairing?
Oh, I guess we should. I haven't looked at it this week, and I'm kind of just clearing cobwebs from other things. So, really quick. I'm just going to check on the operational readiness cap.
Yeah, do we need to get the PRR?
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody wants to put some like passive like like leverage on that.
I'll post in the prod readiness review Slack again, or bump the one that I already did.
Cool.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's good. SIG Windows.
Okay. Yeah, well, this one, right?
Yeah, I just don't want to drive it too hard because, it's my PR, so I don't want to push any further on it. Like,
well, a lot of times when I've talked to some of the reviewers, like I always try to, say like, hey, I don't want to be annoying, but a lot of times they're like, sometimes they just have so much different so many different notifications that they just ignore everything and like to be kind of interrupted. So it's a balance, but yeah, let me do that right now.
Yeah. I feel like this is mostly like a pretty trivial, but yeah. Cool.
Yep. All right, I'll mention you too and add you to that prod readiness channel, Jay.
Sure. Yeah, and probably ping a meme on it too. It's his PR actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
I'm going to end the meeting now. I'll hang out for a little bit until I drop for Signode. But where's the Zoom control bar?
Yeah.